Good morning and welcome to Unfiltered Vision News. Good morning and welcome to Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. My name is Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols and I will be your host. Thank you so much for joining me. And it is open mic, so if any of our men out there would like to be a part of the show and come on and just let me know your thoughts on the different topics or actually bring up a topic, just let me know. You can direct message me on X, and my profile is It's Our Turn RP, or you can send an email to unfilteredvisionnews@gmail.com. And with that, we're going to get into our first video for our Kids Corner. Again, thank you so much for joining me this morning on Unfiltered Vision News.
Wished you had a superpower? Meet Zaven, a 6-year-old rich kid who thought his toys made him powerful, until one day he found a skill that no one could buy. One morning, Zaven's grandpa told him, "The greatest power is learning." Zaven laughed. "How can learning beat my drone?" Grandpa just smiled. Zaven started small, reading about space. His mind felt like it was flying past stars. Soon he wanted to learn about everything: animals, buildings, and even music. At school, he surprised everyone by solving a tough puzzle. "How'd you do that?" his friend asked. Zaven just smiled. "I learned it last night." One afternoon, Zaven brought his science kit to the park. He showed kids how to make a rainbow in a bottle, and they cheered like he was a magician. Zaven noticed something. Learning didn't just help him, it made him useful to others. His friends started asking him questions instead of showing off. Toys. Zaven learned the best super skill is learning itself. It grows every time you use it, and the more you share it, the stronger it becomes.
Yes, so let's all remember that, especially for our younger listeners out there. It is a complete superpower because, you might be skilled in an area where somebody else really needs help and you can help them. So learning is always, always useful. So continue to learn and grow. And with that, we're going to get into honoring God with our body. So God, please guard our mind and our thoughts. God, help me to fix my thoughts on what is true and honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable. So I will think about things that are excellent and worthy of praise. God, please protect our ears and help us listen to your voice. God, help me to be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. God, protect my eyes from sin's damage. God, I make a covenant with my eyes not to look lustfully. God, set a guard over my mouth. Lord, keep watch. Hands to serve generously. God, help me to do good to everyone, and especially to those who belong to our family in the faith. And God, please help me to honor you with my body. And God, please protect our feet. God, let your word be a lamp on my path. So we try to say that every morning. And I say try because, to make an early announcement for the next 2 Mondays. So that's February. I will not be on air. I've got some appointments that I have to get to. So, again, that will be February 2nd and February 9th. Then I'll make sure to make that announcement again on Friday, just so you guys are aware of what's going on with my schedule. Because I'll be like, where's Founder? Because some people do call me Founder. Yes, I am around. I'm just not going to be on the air on a particular day. So, with that, we're going to get into our first video, and this is from Jeffrey Mead. He is on X, and he had an interesting video on the Electoral College because, right now it's just, it, I don't know, it's just gross outside politically. I mean, just gross. The way people are acting, the way people are refusing to have civil discord. It's really sad. It is really, truly, truly sad. So let's check this out.
Above my head. This is the 2030 apportionment forecast, which will be based off the 2030 census. So this is predicting if states will increase in electoral votes, decrease in electoral votes, or stay the same. If you pay attention, every single state that's decreasing in electoral votes is blue. Essentially, every state that's green is either red or trending red. You can argue or debate about Georgia, but my overall point still stands. This is terrifying for Democrats, and I'll explain why. This is also likely why Joe Biden let in millions upon millions of illegal immigrants and why we've seen Democrats fighting us so hard to enforce our immigration laws and deport these illegal immigrants. So 3 things are converging at once right now. The first one is people are moving from blue states to red states. The only reason California has been seeing consistent population gains is due to international migration to California. Americans are moving out of California to red states. And again, why is this important? Because of apportionment. So let's take this a step back and let's just talk about off the jump when it comes to presidential elections. Electoral votes. Republicans start at an advantage when it comes to electoral votes, meaning there are more solid red states than there are solid blue states. So depending on how you look at it, Republicans start with around a 240 electoral vote baseline before the election even really begins. That's baked in. Democrats start with around a 200 to 210 electoral vote baseline. Republicans already have the advantage there, and that's essentially just off the rip. So let's think about this. I'm going to go back a little bit. First thing, Republicans already have a baked-in advantage when it comes to the Electoral College. They already start closer to 270 than Democrats do. Again, this is based off of solid red states versus solid blue states. Now here's the second thing. Individuals are moving out of blue states and moving to red states, which then in 2030, from then on, for the next 10 years, it will increase red states' electoral vote baseline. So once 2030 starts, the advantage for Republicans will even be larger. Now let's add the third thing, which is voter registration. Democrats are losing a ton of voters. Independents are gaining a ton of voters at Democrats' expense, and Republicans are gaining in voter registration. So now let's add those 3 things. Democrats have a lower baseline when it comes to electoral votes. The census shifts are going to lower their baseline even further when it gets to 2030. And they're having registration issues. They're losing voters. What is one way to offset this? Immigration. Remember, the census counts bodies, not citizens. So when Trump is deporting immigrants, this is harming Democrats Because again, they want to have a bunch of illegal immigrants in this country because it helps them protect the structure. They don't want to lose electoral votes. Well, if people are moving out of their states, what's the way they can increase their population? Import people. They don't want their baseline when it comes to electoral votes lowered. Again, import people. This is essentially one of the most effective ways they can fight back to stop the underlying structure from changing that would disadvantage them even further. This is why they're fighting us enforcing our immigration laws so aggressively, because it is existential for them in many ways. And this is why you see panic, moral absolutism, apocalyptic language like the world's coming to an end. It's also why you see total refusal to compromise. They hide all of this behind morality and compassion. But in reality, they're just trying to preserve their power. And having a bunch of illegal immigrants in this country is a way they can do that. It allows them to still somewhat be competitive. Because when you stack all these things up, it's kind of brutal. Think about it. Republicans already have an advantage when it comes to electoral votes. Democrats are losing citizens to red states, which is going to increase Republicans' advantage even further when it comes to electoral votes, apportionment, Congress, etc. On top of that, there are more people registering Republican than Democrat, so they're losing the voter registration battle at the moment. But one of the ways to offset this is to have a bunch of immigrants in their states. So again, Democrats are not just being compassionate out of the goodness of their heart for all these illegal immigrants. They're using emotion to manipulate people into helping them preserve a structure that keeps them somewhat in power. Or they want to stop the structure from eroding their power. Either way, again, it's not about compassion. It's not about being kind out of the goodness of their heart. It's about federal power. And I just sent out an article about this to my Substack subscribers probably like an hour ago, explaining this in more detail. So in the future, if you want emails like this into your inbox that really help inform.
And he's really good. I mean, I definitely learned a lot from him. But a lot of people have been saying that. It's like the Democrats want the bodies, right? They don't care if these people actually, how should I say, are aligned with them politically. They just want the bodies. I mean, and I remember sharing with you guys a video about an imam, and he was saying, yeah, people that practice, some people that practice Islam and that are Muslim, they don't agree with the Democrats, but they know they can get away with whatever they're doing in the Democratic Party, where they couldn't do that in the Republican Party. So they side with this party. Again, it's just a body count. And that's what this is coming down to. So I can see on that one side where he's like, yeah, that's why they don't want the illegals to leave. But then my of these visas, remember we talked about the visas yesterday. What about all the H-1B visas? What about all the J-1 visas? Remember, the teachers 100 to over 4,000 in just a few years. And that was since like 2020 or 2021. Now, had the J-1 visa always had a high count, I'd be like, okay, we've been importing people en masse. No, it was as of late. Do you think the majority of those people that came over here, J1, do you think they're voting Republican? Stop that. Stop it. Do you think the people that are over here in some of these states and they're here with will the vote, but they're being allowed to vote because they give them driver's license in New York. And those states don't require ID to vote. So literally anyone can vote. And as long as they have the bodies during the census, it doesn't matter if they're citizens or not. This is why Marjorie Taylor Greene actually put forth a piece of legislation saying we've got an upcoming census and it should only count you naturalized, right? Legally, okay? Not people that, came over here illegally and they're getting this backdoor amnesty, which is what they want with the Madrid. They are desperately trying to keep people here because the more people that are deported, the more their voter base is diluted, the more seats they're going to lose. But here's my thing. I think they're going to lose some seats anyway. I think people are tired of it. I think people are tired of both parties, really. I mean, to be quite honest. And when that shift within Congress, see, people keep thinking, oh, it's always going to be Republican and Democrat. No, it's not. I'm tired of both parties. Trust me, they have a very hard time. You many times they'll side with the Democratic Party because that's the majority. And they know if they don't run as a Democrat, and these are primarily Caucasian people and black people, and I live in Georgia, is because they want at least the opportunity to run, and that's disgusting. When people are like, wow, I can't even run as a Republican because people are either going to shun me or just not even vote for me because I'm running with the Republican Party. That's gross. That's gross. You should always be able to choose. I don't care whether it's independent, Republican, or Democrat. But both parties are becoming pariahs where people don't want to deal with both of them. And so they are going to go more independent. Just to even say, okay, I'm independent, I'm out. I'm not dealing with it. That's going to start happening more and more and more. Again, this is why I founded the Redemption Party. So definitely check us out at usaredemptionparty.com. Now we're going to get into our next video. And I came across this one. Now this is kind of dealing with the whole Omar situation and this person that sprayed whatever chemical they sprayed on her. Nobody still knows. We still don't know. We haven't. No. Did anybody do any forensics? I didn't see anybody up there, collecting evidence because see, here's my thing, because I'm a paralegal. I'm like, the jacket, nobody should have touched her, first of all, because you've contaminated the evidence completely. You know what I mean? Like, I can see, okay, you've tackled him to the ground. Whoever collected the evidence needed to put it in a bag, needed to collect the evidence to make sure it wasn't corrupt. She's standing up there with this liquid on her jacket. Her jacket should have been taken off immediately and put in a secure location so that it could be tested for whatever chemicals were in there to make sure that they weren't harmful. Did anybody get a forensic audit? Did anybody care? I mean, C-SPAN was there. Why was C-SPAN there? That was still my question. Why were they there when they're nowhere else? It's very crazy. Very, very, very crazy. So let me see. Let me make sure. Did I get this video? Oh, no. That's right. This was just, it wasn't a video. It was actually a, bear with me. It was actually a post on X. So I'm going to have to go and grab it really quick. Thank you again for dealing with me. And just know, it's just me in here, in my office, doing the best that I can to bring you guys the information. Everybody else is like, oh my gosh, I have to have a studio. And oh my goodness, I have to do that. No, I ain't doing none of that. Okay. I just want to look decent in the morning. Hopefully I don't look horrible, right? I got the microphone. We got some cameras going. Let's go. Right? Let's do this, Johnny. Because I don't have time to, get wrapped up around the wheel of trying to be perfect. I mean, yeah, it might give me some more viewers if I'm perfect, but do I have to be perfect? Nah, I don't think so. Okay, so let me share my screen. Now, this is something that you guys might see Let me make this a little bit bigger. A little bit. Let's see if we go. That's too big. Okay, let's go to 125. So this is apparently a post. And it says the alleged Ilhan Omar sprayer, Andy Kazmierzak seems to have some far left gender pronoun children, but yeah, totally MAGA. This stinks of being staged. There are 30 million reasons why. So, okay. So he sprays her with something, and these are his children. And, I think a lot of people have children like this on both sides, whether you're Republicans or Democrats. Okay. It, it is what it is. I've got kids that have those little nose rings on, but it's kind of interesting because one of my children, when she first got it, she was like, "Oh yeah," she goes, "I just wear it down when I'm at home or whatever." She goes, "But if I go on an interview or something, I just tuck it in my nose so nobody can see it." I was like, "Oh, okay." She was like, "Yeah, it's like kind of like a tattoo, when I'm not at work, I just wear it down." And I'm like, and so not everybody out here, I just wanted to share that, is just doing whatever. Okay. And I think a lot of people just assume that. Now, I wanted to look a little further into it because, he's been framed as a Trump supporter. And then people were saying, no, he's not, based on that picture with his children, right? And maybe some other information. So this is still ongoing. So the information I'm pulling up, I'm just going to say allegedly because I wanted to know about the relationship. Now, can ChatGPT be right or wrong? It could be, but I just wanted to aggregate the information. So apparently he was arrested. Okay. There's no familiar, personal, or prior relationship between Ilhan Omar and Anthony Kazmarek. Beyond this incident, he is not connected to her through family, marriage, employment, business, or any other affiliation. This is what ChatGPT is alleging. Okay. So he is a Minneapolis resident with a criminal history, okay, including past DWI convictions and other offenses, and has expressed conservative political views online, including support for Donald Trump. Now, this is interesting. Okay, you got DWI convictions, and okay, that I guess. Okay. He has reportedly harbored long standing animosity towards Ilhan Omar, specifically with the Somali community more broadly. Okay. His ex wife, Patrice, from a marriage that ended in 2017, is described in some sources as a political activist and supporter of progressive figures like Omar and Alexandria Cortez. She publicly expressed being heartbroken about the attack on Omar and wished her well. So claims circulating online that, I'm not trying to say his name because I'm a butcher it, was employed by or connected to Omar's husband's business, such as a winery, or that the incident was staged, have been debunked as false or satirical in fact checks. No credible reporting supports any such link. Some social media posts speculate about staging, excuse me, or indirect ties via his ex wife's politics, but these appear to be unsubstantiated rumors. So, in summary, their only relationship is that he is the alleged purporter of a physical assault against her motivated by apparent political hostility. Okay. And are there pictures of Anthony and Ilhan Omar together? Because I've seen one online and I was like, is that real? Because we do live in a world of AI. I'm just saying we do. And you can create pictures of people together. So, no, there are no genuine pictures of Anthony Kurzmak and Ilhan Omar together in any personal, friendly, or collaborative context. The only image connecting them are from the January 27, 2026 town hall incident itself, such as event footage. Okay. Now, they're circulating online claims of photos showing them posing together. An AI image generated Omar smiling and holding Fiji water and cash have been debunked as fake and AI originating from parody or misinformation accounts. Wow. Okay. He did not donate to her campaign. Okay. And they're sole connection remains the alleged assault. So I said, can you give me a link to his social media views on Trump? No, no direct public link of his full social media profiles or specific posts is widely shared in credible reporting, likely due to privacy considerations. So now this is a convenient situation. Now, I used to work compliance for MySpace, and when we would have an incident, we were immediately told to lock the profile and make it unsearchable, right? We had to pretty much erase this person from the internet so that reporters and different people couldn't just grab or snatch information. And it had to be done in a timely manner, right? Because you got people out here trying to fact check and different things like that. And that was back then. That was back in 2017. Actually, 2016 and 2017. There were two different incidents. So when I see this, I'm like, yeah, I definitely understand, because they lock those profiles. So you can't just go in and prove or disprove anything, which makes it a little bit difficult, because then whatever information, true or not true, can be turned over to larger media outlets, and they can spin whatever narrative they want without even divulging the truth, whatever the truth is, right? Because my thing is, if I don't see it with my own eyes, I cannot substantiate it. That's why I'm always saying alleged, supposed, this could have happened or could not have happened. Because if I cannot prove it, I will bring you as much information as I can. But if I cannot truly solidify and prove it, I'm not going to tell you that this is what it is. But what I'm telling you here, in the context of what I'm telling you, they've pulled all of his social media that they can, so that no one can find it. Now, there are Wayback Machines that you can put his name in and possibly find more information. That's completely possible. But as it stands, they're pulling everything. So can they assumptively spin a narrative and say he's a Trump supporter? They absolutely can. But my whole thing is, are you going to cite your source and show the proof? Or are you just going to say things? And that's what I want everybody here to be careful about. When you just hear something and it's not backed up by any type of sourcing or site sourcing where they got their information from, be careful. Be very careful. Because even with the whole, that's why I was asking. I was like, okay, what is their relationship? Now, can ChatGPT be wrong? It could be. Most of the time it's not, but sometimes it is. I'm just saying. When it comes to ideology, I think it gets it wrong. But just sourced, aggregated information, it's pretty accurate. It's pretty accurate of what it's pulling in. So from multiple reliable sources. See, here's the thing. What are these reliable sources? Show me, tell me. But you can't. And that's why I'm like, okay, but I need to take this with a grain of salt. Because whoever these reliable sources are, right? Because here's the news outlets: AP, PBS, The Hill, New York Times, CNN. These are all people that have lied to us in the past. Huh? But they've reviewed his accounts. Okay. So again, we need to take this with a grain of salt. So he's described Trump positively, writing that Trump wants the U.S. to be stronger and more prosperous. He frequently showed support for conservative causes, including changing his Facebook profile. Okay. His posts included criticism of Democrats. He supported groups like Turning Point USA. Okay. That's what they're saying. But where is this? Where is it? You're saying it, but oh my goodness, we can't find it. Okay. And these details come from journalistic reviews of his Facebook, where he went by Andy and posted as a former network engineer in Minneapolis. No specific X Twitter handle is confirmed as in reporting for searches. So hopefully his Facebook is still up. If not, you can always try the Wayback Machine. Now, his ex-wife publicly distanced herself, expressing heartbreak over the attack. Okay. His profiles remain public. So hopefully we can find them. They may be searchable on Facebook under variations like those two names in Minneapolis, but I can't provide a direct link as none is cited in sources and direct access isn't available here. Okay. So I said, have any Trump supporters been involved in activity similar to this? Now, apparently, the most directly comparable incident case occurred just days before an attack before Ilhan Omar. A man was arrested in Utah for allegedly punching U.S. Representative Maxwell Frost, he's a Democrat from Florida, in the face at a bar during the Sundance Film Festival. According to reports, the assailant screamed racist remarks and stated that Trump was going to deport Frost, who is a young black Democrat. Frost described the incident publicly, and the attacker faced charges including aggravated burglary and assaulting an elected official. Multiple sources, including PBS, The Hill, and AP, highlighting this as part of a pattern of rising threats to lawmakers. Now, this is interesting. Did you guys ever hear about this? I didn't hear about this. Maybe you have, because there's a lot of news out there. But let me know in the chat if you heard about Maxwell Frost being punched in the face. How you getting punched in the face in Utah? Really? You just getting punched in the face in Utah? It's weird. It's weird. Because a lot of times, I don't know. Sundance? Weird. And nobody knows about it. Like I said, this is my first time hearing about it through ChatGPT, but maybe it's going on somewhere. Good morning, Uncle Coolwater. And Spud says hazmat protocols. And good morning to you as well. Minnesota Fats, good morning to you. Thank you guys for joining me here on Mighty Men Thursday. Appreciate it. So that happened. And then there were threats and attacks on members of Congress. And this is going back to January 6th. And not that it was funny, but AOC, she was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe all this stuff happened. And she was across the street. She was like nowhere near what happened. But she had all this outrage. It was like, ma'am, stop. We're going to check. We're going to check because we want to make sure everybody's okay, regardless of their political leaning. We want to make sure everybody's good. Why are you, what? Do you need attention that bad? Like, it's bad. It's really bad. So I said some are calling the incident with Omar a hoax. Yes, some people, particularly in MAGA circles on social media and amplified by the President Trump, calling the 26th incident on Representative Omar a hoax, right? And the facts are the 55-year-old resident, he rushed her. He used a syringe-like device, unknown liquid, and later believed to be apple cider vinegar. Huh? You gonna spray ACV on somebody? What were you trying to accomplish? It doesn't smell that bad. I drink apple cider vinegar. I actually use it in some of my recipes for my food. Now I know there's some people there are just like, vinegar makes them recoil, like regular white vinegar. Balsamic is off the chain. Like if you want to do some, like, I guess, insensitive, if you want to be like completely off the chain, use balsamic vinegar because it's got a scent that's like, wow. It's actually fermented grapes, by the way. So you use apple cider vinegar? But again, nobody was trying to collect evidence. No one was trying to make her take off her jacket so there could be some type of forensics done. They're just assuming that this is what it is. Did anybody actually have it tested? Was it that serious? Because it's almost like we just moved on and now she's just, getting campaign contributions off of it. We've just all moved on. Like, this is okay. None of it's okay. It's really crazy. Security tackled him. Omar was uninjured. The video footage from the event is on C-SPAN. Why were they there? It was very, see, that's my, I call hoax situation. That's what I call, because C-SPAN was there and they didn't have to be. They were coordinated to be there by her team. Why was C-SPAN there? Why was this event so important? And in my opinion, it was because they wanted to set up this situation. She wasn't injured. It wasn't acid. It wasn't deadly. He didn't spray her in the face. He made sure that it was on her lower part of her body. What? So he wasn't trying to injure her. He was just trying to cause a scene. And when we find all of this out and we find everybody tied to it, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. And it goes into more, so law enforcement and bipartisan lawmakers, condemn the assault as real violence. No official investigation or evidence has supported hoax claims. It's treated as a genuine politically motivated assault in a climate of rising threats to lawmakers. Well, who started it? Let's see, Maxine Waters. And when she was out there saying, you get in their face and you make a crowd and you make a scene. Even before that, there were lawmakers making obscene rhetoric towards Republicans. And there was this baseball game and they were practicing, and Steve Scalise got shot, almost lost his life. Then after that, Maxine Waters says, you tell them, you get in their face and you create a crowd around them, and and a couple weeks later, Rand Paul got his ribs broken in his front yard because somebody ran up and tackled him. In broad daylight, by the way. It wasn't dark. And the Democrats want to sit back and go, oh my gosh, I can't believe this rhetoric. Stop it. Both sides, stop it. I'm going to both sides this thing because they both do it. Stop it. Because the violence that you're inciting, whether you think you're inciting it or not, it's happening. Turn the temperature down, refocus, and let people know, if you do these things, you're going to prison. You cannot incite violence against other people. That's not free speech. And your speech shouldn't be protected, even if you're a lawmaker, especially if you're a lawmaker, because you know better. And the people need to start calling for mass arrest. And I don't care what party they're in. This needs to stop. Because stuff like this is only going to get worse. It's only going to get worse. It's not going to get better. It's definitely not going to get better. Because people are too incensed right now. They are off the chain. Okay? And it's really, really bad. And we, as a society, need to say, okay, enough. Sit down in your respective corners, because obviously you don't know how to act like adults. Like, you need guidance, apparently, because this is bad. This is really, really, really bad. Now, the next video I wanted to get into is from Maverick. You guys may have seen him on X. He's also on TikTok. And he had some things to share about what's going on with the new ownership of TikTok.
It looks like TikTok is dead, with millions of users deleting the app right now, and removals are up to 150%. What is going on? Now, there was a new US merger, and one of the guys involved was this guy, one of the richest guys on earth, Larry Ellison, who made $100 billion in one day last year. Yeah, that guy, who I like to call one of the most dangerous but silent billionaires on earth, because nobody really talks about this guy. And most people don't know that his son owns Skydance, which owns Paramount. He owns Oracle and now TikTok, so all bases are covered. Now, there's two reasons why people are deleting the app. For one, the new terms of service are completely off the rails. And yes, we've seen some crazy terms of service with all these apps. They're all tracking us. We know this, but let's take a look at this one. So the new TOS states that they can track your citizenship, your immigration status, your religious beliefs, your mental health and physical health diagnosis, your race, if you're trans or binary, your sexual preference and orientation. This screams FBI, CIA tracking device. But it doesn't stop there, because the second thing is the censorship, which is completely out of control because you can't say the word Epstein, like ever. And yes, there's screenshots all over the internet right now where people cannot say the word Epstein or even DM the word Epstein. I mean, isn't it funny that they only released less than 1% of the Epstein files, and now this merger comes, and now we can't even say Epstein? Very interesting. Not to mention, when you mention Larry Ellison himself, they'll freeze your video, and there's screenshots all over the internet verifying this. And even TikTok now is launching an investigation on why you can't mention Epstein. Yeah, let's go ahead and investigate ourselves. You guys, this is worse than communist China because they own the app before them, and people are even saying they gotta sell TikTok back to China, bro. What the fuck is this? Now, as a result of all this, the alternative everybody's going to is Upscroll, which is now #1 in the App Store and #2 globally. You could definitely find me there because after that Epstein shit, I'm out. And not to mention, they just deleted my 6th TikTok account. So, final straw. Make sure you guys hit up my YouTube, The Maverick Approach. I'm gonna do a deeper dive, but let me know what you guys think about all this down below.
Yeah. So, what do you guys think? That's really crazy with the TOS. I mean, that is above and beyond no freedom, right? We're looking at everything. What you do on in your private life, your medical, your mental state. Yeah, that's a profile. They are literally building profiles on people. So, I am on TikTok. I don't post too much to TikTok. Like, I'm very vanilla with my posting on TikTok because I've actually had my account, unfortunately, not banned, but they will flag it. I've had my account flagged, and then they put me in timeout for a minute. I was like, all right, I'll be good. I'm good. And they were like, okay, you're good now. So they let me out of timeout. I was like, all right, mess with y'all. So I don't have automatic posts that go there. I try to make sure like whatever I do post is, TikTok friendly, I guess, but I don't spend a lot of time over there. I'm not in, the spaces over there. I'm not trying to engage with people too much over there. I'm getting engagement. I'm glad that people are following me on TikTok, but I don't mess around with it. So people just want to know I don't. Now, whether that was a shameless plug for another app or not, I was like, I'll give it a try. It's not bad. It's not bad. I've gotten a little bit of engagement. I uploaded it yesterday. So it's called Upscroll. Let me make sure I get that right because I got it on my phone. Let me check. Yep, Upscrolled. UPSCROLLED. And if it's the new thing coming out, great. Because guess what? There's a lot of things out there. There's fan base, right? Okay, just returning a text really quick. But yeah, there's other options out there. Like I said, there's fan base. There was another app that I was using. I try not to get into too many apps. I try to just keep it to the 3. Right now, it's Facebook, YouTube, and X. And those are the ones I post to. Every once in a great while, I will post to my Instagram account. I'm trying to be better with my TikTok account because I have an app that helps me create clips, and it goes right to the TikTok account and my YouTube account. So it kind of helps with my workflow. But we really need to start paying attention to these terms and conditions. And that's very scary that people are like, hey, give it back to China. They were doing far better than you. And I'm like, wow. That's interesting. That is interesting. But it is very interesting, too, about the whole Epstein file situation and how the Clintons are just refusing to follow their subpoena. So are they going to prison? Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? If you're not going to put people in prison, why did you even ask them to come before you in the first place? Is it just me on that? Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? Is this just a litmus test to show us how above the law other people are? And how you want us to completely accept it? Like, I'm trying to figure out this balance. Because the malicious things that have been done, the things that politicians have been caught in, um, high level CEOs, high level people. They're branding. I mean, they are doing all of these incredible crimes in front of our face, and nobody goes to prison. No one. And they just walk on the planet. Whatever. I mean, I know you got the hookup, but it's just so blatant right now that they got the hookup. It's overwhelming. It really is. It really truly is. Now, this next video we're going to get into is a little long, but I think it's very well worth it. When I found it, and it actually was posted 3 days ago, I was like, oh my goodness, I hate that I missed it 3 days ago, because I definitely would have loved to have it on Tell It All Tuesday for you guys, but definitely I want you guys to take a listen to this.
Debit card or a bank account, you need to know about this right now.
All the money that you had in there is gone, and you actually owe Chase $895.
Nearly $160,000 stolen.
You think of your bank as being someplace that you put your money so that it's safe, but it's not safe.
And the woman you're about to meet can tell you why.
I'm not a young person anymore. I really was relying on just kind of a comfortable life at my age.
But a few weeks after moving in, she says, she got a text saying her bank, Chase, wanted to know if she'd approved a $35 debit card charge from another state.
So basically, it's one of those fraud texts.
That's right.
Did you approve this transaction?
Yeah, that's all it was. Just a minor irritant in my day. And of course, I said no. I don't approve of it.
Then the phone rang, showing Chase Bank as the caller, she says. And on the other end?
Hello, ma'am. This is Miss Barbara from...
Now, I have these alerts as well. They never call you. You might get like an auto response text, whether you say yes or no. Usually the yes, if you believe that it was fraud, or if you say no and it's fraud, you're prompted, and this is what mine does. It'll say, okay, we've immediately locked your card. No other transactions will come through. And we'll let you know when your card is on its way. Like it's done. No one calls me. No phone calls. Now, I got caught up into something like this a few years ago, and it was my bank. And they kept sending me a text that were like, and I had 2 different bank accounts at the time, and so it was a little confusing. And I was like, okay. And then I was like, why are you calling me? And they kept calling. Like more than once, and texting me, you need to answer. I was just like, no. And then after a while, I was like, you know what, this is a scam. And then they stopped calling. But I wonder if this is even more nefarious. What if it's actually somebody within the bank doing this? I don't know. I'm just allegedly, because they're using the same software. They're using the same authentication that's done. Right now, I want to say people are really used to how this is done.
Chase ATM, I'd like to know if it's okay if I give you a new card. And I said yes.
A new debit card. But she says the woman told her before she could issue it, she'd need to verify Moss's identity by sending her a text message and having her read the numbers in the message back to her over the phone.
And I would just repeat those numbers to her. And she'd say, that's great. Thank you so much, Miss Moss.
Her new card was supposed to arrive in 1 to 2 days, but Moss says the next day Ms. Barbara called, saying FedEx was having trouble locating her home, something Moss says wasn't surprising to her since she'd just moved. Over the next week, Ms. Barbara called several times, Moss says, each time saying there was a problem with delivery of the card, and each time asking Moss to verify her identity by reading back the numbers from those text messages. Moss finally decided to go to the nearest bank branch 30 minutes from her home. And it was here, she says, a supervisor told her.
He looks up at me and says, oh no, Deborah, this has been a very active card. As a matter of fact, all the money that you had in there is gone, and you actually owe Chase $895. That's how I was told that somebody had taken all my money.
Nearly $160,000 stolen.
It's a lot of money. It's took me 12 years to get that money, and that was my life savings.
It turns out those text messages Moss received, they were real texts sent from Chase Bank, a security measure known as two-factor authentication, used to verify, among other things, wire transfers. But in this case, the scammers tricked Moss into giving them those numbers, allowing them to evade security and wire thousands of dollars from Moss's account to their own. 6 wire transfers in amounts as high as almost $48,000 in a single week.
I didn't even...
And what's crazy is you would think your bank would be like, did you authorize this? But because they had those numbers, everything was circumventing her, the owner, and going to the scammers. That's how this happened. So the bank just assumed she was doing that. And that's the sad part. Don't like banks, but this is, you have to have a good relationship with your bank. And there are some people at some banks, and I live here in Georgia, I remember getting a call, like a real legit. The banker was like, hey, I've noticed some activity on your account. Are you okay? Is this all right? And I was just like, oh yeah, we're in the process of moving, and so I'm just moving some money around, And it's like, okay, just wanted to know. And I have a relationship with my bank now. Like when I travel, I'm like, hey, I'm going to be traveling. I might be spending, over like $200-$300 because we got to get gas, we got to eat, and that. You know what I'm saying? And I give them my route so they know. So if I'm traveling to New York and there's something in Montana, they're like, okay, we need to alert Mrs. Nichols because something's going on in Montana. And she told us that's not where she's going to be. And we have that kind of relationship. And I think people need to focus more on that. If you're going to have your money in a bank, have that relationship with your fraud department, with customer service. Have all kinds of alerts going on. So, say, okay, the maximum amount that could ever be transferred in my account on a daily basis is no more than $1,000. So if something happens and it's over that, there's going to be somebody that actually calls you from your bank because you told them to do that. But again, the fraudsters, they've gotten very clever. And that's why I wanted to share this video.
I didn't know what a wire transfer was. I've never done a wire transfer in my whole life.
Chase told Moss to file a police report, then a claim with the bank, which she did. But 5 weeks later, Chase denied her claim and blamed her, writing, "During our review, we found you did not take the appropriate steps to protect your account from theft or unauthorized use." Bank officials said they would not reimburse her account.
My world fell apart. My whole world fell apart. You think of your bank as being someplace that you put your money so that it's safe. But it's not safe. It needs to change.
All right, so you just watched how everything just played out. Now, I'm not going to rehash everything in the video that you just saw. I'm going to break down exactly how this scam works and how to avoid it. Also, what to do immediately if it happens to you, because this can happen at any bank, not just Chase Bank, okay? So first things first, this was not a sloppy scam. This was actually pretty clean. It was professional, and that's why people get caught. And what I mean by professional is not legal, but the way that they did it, it was so good that they were able to actually get the money. Now, how this scam actually works. Here's the part that most people miss. Number one, the text message, it was real. It looked like a normal Chase fraud alert. We've all gotten fraud alert before via text message. It was also a small dollar amount. A simple yes or no question, nothing flashy. That's intentional. Number two, the phone call was spoofed, which means the caller ID, it showed Chase Bank, but it wasn't Chase Bank. The tone was calm, it was professional. There wasn't much pressure. There wasn't any yelling, no threats. And as you can see, scammers, they're starting to tweak how they do things. That's why it worked so well. Number three, the verification trap. They asked her to read back a code sent by text. Now these codes, they're a real two-factor authentication codes. She didn't give them her password. She didn't even give them her PIN number to the account, okay? So she unknowingly gave them the keys to the bank account. Number four, the wire transfers, they happen pretty fast. There were multiple wire transfers. They were large dollar amounts, all within days. That should have triggered red flags. Number 5, the bank denied reimbursement, and the bank's position was simple, okay? If it looks like you're playing a role into the scam, whether you knew it or didn't know it, if you shared codes, that makes it look authorized. That's authorized activity. And pretty much to them, it's end of story. Now, this is the hardest truth that you need to hear. Banks protect systems, not mistakes. If a transaction, if it looks like it's authorized on paper, the banks will deny the claim, even if you were the one manipulated, even if it feels unfair, even if it destroys, yes, your life savings. That's why prevention matters more than recovery. Now, let's talk about how to avoid this scam completely. Now, these are not suggestions. These are rules that you need to follow. Let's start with number 1. Never respond to fraud text messages. Not yes, not no, not stop, nothing. You can actually call the direct fraud department by calling the number on the back of your debit card just in case. Number 2, never trust inbound calls. I don't care what the caller ID says. Most banks are not going to call you. And here's why. Caller IDs can be spoofed, which means it can look like the bank is calling you, but it's someone else. Number 3, never share verification codes. Here's why. No bank employee needs your one-time code ever. Even if they ask, it's a scam. Number 4, always initiate contact yourself. Like I just mentioned, it's on the back of your debit card. There's a phone number directly to the bank, or you can log into your bank app directly or go to the website online, but not from a link that you got from someone, not from a text message that you just got from someone. Number 5, you want to lock down your wire transfers. Ask your bank to require in-branch approvals for wire transfers. Then add a verbal passphrase. You also want to set daily wire limits. Most people never do this, and that's why scammers target them. Number 6, separate large balances. Don't keep all of your life savings in a single checking account. It should be in a high yield savings account, if anything. Use multiple accounts. You also want to keep daily spend money separate from your reserves, which is your main savings. You want to keep those separate from each other. Now, here's why this can happen at any bank. This is important. This was not a Chase Bank problem. So this means Wells Fargo, Bank of America, credit unions, online banks, all of them, they use similar authentication systems. So it's not uncommon that you would get a fraud text message. But if you're not sure if it's them or not, that's why I said don't respond. Scammers don't hack banks. They hack people. Now, here's what you should do immediately if this happens to you. And here's why. I need you to probably write this down. Time matters. Hours are going to matter. Number 1, call your bank immediately. Use a number on the back of your card. Then ask for the fraud department. You also want to get in the habit of documenting everything, because this could mean whether you get your money back or not. Number 2, go to a branch in person. Escalate it to a supervisor. And that won't take much at all, because you can also ask for wire recall attempts as well, even if it's a long shot. Number 3, file a police report. You will need it. And most banks are going to require it, especially if you're trying to get your money back. And don't skip this step, because a lot of people do. Number 4, file a complaint with the CFPB while they're still around, okay? This is going to force a formal response, and it's also going to create a great paper trail for you as well, too. Banks are going to take these seriously. Number 5, freeze your credit scoring reports, even if the scam was bank related, because you don't know what all information they were able to get. You want to protect yourself from the next thing that they try to do. Number 6, change everything. I know that this is a hassle. This is going to be your bank login, along with your email password, your phone carrier PIN number, and even enable account alerts for every transaction. Because again, we don't know how far they're going to take it since they have your information. Now, here's why banks push responsibility back on you. And I know some people don't want to hear this, but here's the blunt reality. Banks are going to argue that number 1, the system worked, the customer approved the action, and the loss was preventable. Now, whether you agree or not, it doesn't matter, okay? That's the framework that they operate under. Now, of course, if you skip some of those steps and you take it to a local news station, that might increase your chances. But this also means that your job is to never let it get that far anyway. Here's a breakdown. If someone contacts you claiming to be your bank, here's the final takeaway. Assume that it's fake. Slow everything down, and you also want to verify independently. You want to protect your codes like cash. Don't just be giving this information out willy-nilly, because once that money moves, getting it back is an uphill fight. Remember, this scam, it didn't rely on stupidity. It relied on trust. And that's exactly why it keeps working. I'll see you at the next video.
Yeah. And this is the reason why I wanted to play this video, is because I know, a lot of us out there, we've been corralled and conditioned, and that's my opinion, corralled and conditioned to follow these different protocols. But see, the thieves know that. The scammers know that. And it's horrible what happens to people. I think they made a movie about it. It was The Beekeeper. My husband and I watched that movie. He was so upset. He was like, I can't stand scammers. It's go crazy. And Felicia Rashad, she actually played one of the main characters in the movie. And they took her for her life savings, saying, oh, you have a bug or whatever. And then she allowed them entry into her computer, right, via one of those like little team type apps. And they stole her life savings. And they do this all the time. Like, this is real life. Like, they've literally shut down organizations. And a lot of times they're overseas. Right? Sometimes they're here in the United States, but they are complete networks of nothing but scamming and taking people for millions of dollars. The crypto one is the biggest one, and that one's still going on. Where they get people like, oh yeah, if you send us so much crypto, we'll send you this much crypto back. Scam. Complete scam. And there's nothing they can do about it because it's decentralized. So once you actually send somebody your crypto, it's gone forever. There's nothing police can do about it. There's nothing anyone can do about it. Scammers are real. And I just want to make sure that you guys, my audience, are safe. And with that, we're going to take a quick break. And when we return, we're going to get into some more of this news. And thank you so much for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News. And I will see you on the other side.
A life empowered is closer than you think. We're all looking for a better way. Reimagine what's next with a new sense of exuberance. Why not power on like you mean it? Or power off blissfully? A better sleep is a better awake. You've never moved like this before. Energy nature intended. Imagine reprogramming the way you look at the speed of science. At longevity. At exhilaration. It's next level rejuvenation. Take your well-being from the inside out and outside in. The light within is ready to ignite. Be the light. LifeWave.
And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. My name is Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols, and I will be your host. And we actually had some feedback from somebody, and I'm so sorry that this happened to you. You said that's exactly who it is because I said it might be somebody in the bank. It's someone in the bank. This unnecessary reaching out happened to me at Chase after a settlement check I deposited. The banker I opened the account with was Indian. That's crazy. That is insane. And they were trying to get all this access. You're like, what? Why are you in my business so hard? Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? We have to watch everybody. We can't assume that anybody's clean. Sorry. And good morning, sassy lady. Thank you for joining me. And Spud says, I begged my parents to watch that movie. It was actually, it was a good action movie, but it was just so heartbreaking to see the scamming and the level. And they were so proud of all the evil that they were doing and destroying people's lives. Literally, it was really crazy. It was really crazy. And they look at that lady's life saving, which led her to, yeah. And that was the really sad part because she felt like she had let everybody down. And it truly wasn't her fault the way it went about because she was innocent. She thought, oh my, I can't access my computer. She was sent an email. It created a virus, triggered them. They call like, oh, we noticed this happened. We're calling from whatever, like Microsoft or whatever. And older people they're not that tech savvy. And these scammers know that. And that was the sad part about the movie. And so we're going to get into our next video, and it's talking about a recent Supreme Court hearing the Supreme Court, they have been on their job this session. I'm like, okay, I got to keep up with you guys because this is good. I like it.
Supreme Court just dropped a bombshell that nobody saw coming, a rare unanimous 9-0 ruling that fundamentally rewrites the balance of power between federal agents, state courts, and local law enforcement. And it landed at the worst possible moment, while Minnesota is experiencing a constitutional crisis that has left residents, federal agents, and state officials in a standoff that's been escalating for the past 72 hours. This isn't just another dry legal decision buried in court documents. It's a nationwide earthquake that changes your rights the next time any badge shows up at your door, and it's taking effect immediately. No waiting period, no phased implementation. Federal officers operating in Minnesota right now learned about these new rules from alerts on their phones this morning, and what happens over the next 96 hours will determine whether this ruling prevents chaos or triggers it nationwide. Before we unpack why all 9 justices from Sotomayor to Thomas found common ground on this explosive issue, hit subscribe because the legal revolution unfolding right now will affect every American regardless of where you live. Let's cut through the legal jargon and explain exactly what the Supreme Court did. In a massive opinion that spans multiple companion cases, the justices unanimously struck down decades of legal doctrine that governed how federal and state law enforcement coordinate operations and how state courts interpret federal law. The majority opinion, authored by Chief Justice Roberts but joined by every single justice, including the 3 liberal appointees, represents the most significant unanimous decision on federal-state relations in over a decade. Here's what makes this so explosive. The court addressed 2 critical issues in parallel rulings that arrived within hours of each other, and together they're creating a perfect constitutional storm. First, in the law enforcement coordination case, the court ruled that federal agents can no longer operate within state territory without following state-established coordination protocols. For decades, federal officers could execute warrants, make arrests, and conduct searches by simply flashing a badge and claiming federal authority. That's over. The court declared this practice violates the 10th Amendment's anti-commandeering principle. When federal agents operate inside a state without coordination mechanisms established by that state's legislature, they effectively conscript state resources, including roads, emergency services, and public safety infrastructure, to execute federal policy. The Constitution doesn't allow the federal government to commandeer state sovereignty this way. Second, in the state court interpretation case, the court ruled that state courts have been fundamentally misinterpreting the supremacy clause when it comes to enforcing federal law. For 40 years, state courts in 23 states have developed their own interpretations of federal statutes, often providing more generous remedies or broader liability than federal courts would allow. The Supreme Court just said that entire framework is unconstitutional. State courts can no longer create their own standards for enforcing federal law when those standards are more restrictive or more generous than what federal courts would apply. This affects everything from employment discrimination to consumer protection to environmental enforcement. Translation? Your rights under federal law now depend entirely on federal court standards, and federal agents must follow state coordination rules to operate. Both changes take effect immediately, and Minnesota is ground zero for watching this play out in the most dangerous way possible. 3 days ago, a routine federal drug enforcement operation in Minnesota collided with a state law enforcement operation targeting the same location. Neither agency knew the other was moving. When federal agents breached the property at 6:14 in the morning, they encountered armed state investigators who, operating under Minnesota's strict warrant restrictions, mistook the uncoordinated federal entry for a home invasion. Shots were fired. No fatalities, but 2 state investigators were hospitalized. That single incident triggered Minnesota Governor Tim Walz to activate an emergency provision in the state's Public Safety Act called an emergency jurisdictional freeze. Under this statute, when federal and state operations conflict within state boundaries, the governor can temporarily suspend all federal enforcement actions until protocols are reestablished. Governor Walz issued the freeze order Tuesday night, 8 hours before the Supreme Court released its ruling Wednesday morning. So now we have a perfect constitutional storm, a governor exercising emergency powers to block federal operations based on state law, while the Supreme Court simultaneously rules that federal agents never had constitutional authority to operate without state coordination in the first place. The Department of Justice filed an emergency motion within hours, arguing the governor's freeze exceeds state authority. But here's what DOJ lawyers aren't saying publicly. Their own internal memos from 2 years ago acknowledged this exact scenario was legally precarious. A leaked opinion from the Office of Legal Counsel warned that continued reliance on uncoordinated federal enforcement creates significant vulnerability to 10th Amendment challenges. The administration chose to ignore that warning while prioritizing immigration and drug enforcement metrics. Now that vulnerability has exploded into a full-blown crisis on the streets of Minnesota, but there's a sleeper provision buried in the court's opinion that almost nobody noticed yet. And it's the part that transforms this from a jurisdictional dispute into a tool that states and counties can weaponize. It appears in a concurrence by Justice Kagan, just 87 words that legal scholars are already calling the sovereignty trigger. Here's what it says. Nothing in this opinion prevents states from establishing opt-out registries whereby local jurisdictions may formally decline participation in specific categories of federal enforcement actions, provided such declinations are enacted through transparent legislative processes rather than executive fiat. In plain English, the Supreme Court just greenlit a constitutional pathway for counties and cities to formally refuse cooperation with federal law enforcement on specific policy areas like immigration raids, drug interdiction, even certain financial crime investigations, without triggering federal preemption challenges. Minnesota's legislature, anticipating this exact scenario, passed the Local Autonomy Enforcement Act 6 months ago, creating precisely the transparent legislative process Kagan referenced. The law established a digital registry where county boards can vote to opt out of federal enforcement categories by simple majority. As of 9:47 this morning, 43 minutes after the ruling dropped, sheriffs in 7 Minnesota counties had already filed opt-out declarations. 4 counties declined all immigration enforcement cooperation. 2 rejected federal drug task force participation. 1 county opted out of everything: immigration, narcotics, firearms trafficking, even federal witness protection operating within their borders. The sheriff there put it
Okay. I'm gonna have to pause right there. You opted out of it. So like, nope, we want all the crime in our neighborhood. We do not want you to come in and take anybody. Like, this is desperation of criminality. But let's continue.
bluntly in his press conference. My deputies answered to the voters of this county, not to a U.S. attorney who's never set foot in our jurisdiction. If federal agents want to operate here, they coordinate through my office, or they don't operate at all. This isn't sanctuary city rhetoric anymore. It's constitutional doctrine blessed by a unanimous Supreme Court. Within hours, attorneys general in Vermont, Oregon, and New Mexico issued statements confirming they'd activate similar opt-out registries within 24 hours. Texas and Florida announced they'd pass legislation requiring all counties to cooperate with federal enforcement, setting up an inevitable collision where state law demands cooperation while the Supreme Court just affirmed localities' right to refuse. But here's the terrifying gap nobody's addressing. What happens when federal agents ignore these opt-outs? The ruling strips federal courts' power to force state cooperation, but it doesn't criminalize federal agents who operate anyway. It creates a constitutional gray zone where federal officers could still enter opt-out counties and make arrests, but that evidence would be inadmissible in federal court, and the agents themselves could face state charges. This exact scenario unfolded in Wright County, Minnesota, where 2 immigration agents attempted to serve deportation orders at a facility 30 minutes after the county filed its opt-out declaration. When county sheriff's deputies arrived and ordered the federal agents to stand down, one agent reportedly responded, "You don't have authority over federal immigration enforcement." The sheriff's body cam footage shows the standoff lasting 11 minutes before the federal agents retreated. The template is now set, and the next confrontation might not end peacefully. While politicians debate doctrine, real people are trapped in the enforcement gap, and the human cost is accumulating hour by hour. Let's talk about what's happening to domestic violence victims in opt-out counties, a crisis unfolding right now that transforms abstract sovereignty debates into life or death emergencies. Maria Flores is a pseudonym for a real woman in a Minnesota county who called 911 yesterday after her husband threatened her with a firearm. Under the Federal Violence Against Women Act, she qualified for emergency relocation and witness protection through the U.S. Marshals Service because her abuser has a prior federal firearms conviction. But her county filed its opt-out declaration this morning, specifically declining cooperation with all federal witness protection and victim relocation programs. When county deputies arrived at her home, they confirmed her eligibility for federal protection, but explained they could no longer facilitate contact with U.S. Marshals. The deputies offered state-level resources, a local shelter with a 3-week waiting list, a restraining order that her husband has violated twice before, and the grim advice to stay with family if possible. Maria Flores hasn't been heard from since 3 in the afternoon. Her phone goes straight to voicemail. This isn't isolated. The Minnesota Coalition for Battered Women has documented 12 similar situations in the past 18 hours. Women who qualified for federal victim protections now stranded in enforcement limbo because their counties opted out. The Supreme Court's opinion mentions none of this, not once. The 9 justices who unanimously reshaped American federalism never grappled with the human consequence of their elegant constitutional theory that sovereignty disputes create protection vacuums where the most vulnerable fall through cracks. Federal programs that require local coordination to function are now facing potential fragmentation. The Victims of Trafficking and Violence Protection Act mandates that federal coordinators work through local law enforcement to identify and extract trafficking victims. The Elder Justice Act relies on county protective services to flag financial exploitation cases for federal prosecution. Even Amber Alerts depend on seamless federal-state-local communication to broadcast child abduction alerts across jurisdictional lines. All of these systems now face potential breakdown in opt-out counties. The Department of Justice activated its Emergency Coordination Cell, but internal emails obtained by journalists reveal panic. We have no playbook for operating in a patchwork sovereignty environment. Our entire victim protection infrastructure assumes baseline cooperation. Without it, we're blind. Meanwhile, advocacy groups are filing emergency motions arguing that certain federal protections implementing treaty obligations cannot be subject to local opt-outs without violating international law. But those legal challenges will take months or years. The women in Minnesota don't have months. And while this enforcement crisis unfolds, the second part of the Supreme Court's ruling is detonating a completely different bomb in state courtrooms across America. Within 90 minutes of the decision being published, the Minnesota Attorney General's office filed emergency motions in 11 separate pending cases, all of which involve state court interpretations of federal law that are now constitutionally invalid. Legal experts estimate that 15,000 to 20,000 currently pending state court cases across the country are directly affected because they rely on state court interpretations of federal law that exceed what federal courts would allow. Here's why this matters to ordinary people. Employment discrimination law is the single biggest area where state courts have interpreted federal statutes more broadly than federal courts, and this ruling just eliminated decades of state-level precedent in one stroke. California state courts have allowed employment discrimination cases to proceed to trial on significantly less evidence than federal courts would require. That entire body of precedent is now constitutionally invalid. The same applies to age discrimination, disability rights, and family medical leave, where at least 17 states developed their own more generous interpretations of federal standards. New York courts have been particularly aggressive, allowing hostile work environment claims to proceed based on conduct that federal courts would find insufficient. Every pending employment case in New York State court that relied on this more generous standard is now vulnerable to dismissal. For workers, this means behaviors or policies they thought were illegal under federal law might actually be permissible when judged by the stricter federal standard. The National Employment Law Project estimates that approximately 12,000 workers currently serving as named plaintiffs in state court employment cases will see their cases dismissed or significantly weakened in the next 90 days. Worker advocacy groups are calling this a corporate get-out-of-jail-free card, while business organizations frame it as necessary correction to state courts overstepping their authority. Consumer protection litigation is experiencing the same seismic shift. State courts in 23 states have interpreted federal consumer protection statutes more favorably for consumers than federal courts do, particularly the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, Truth in Lending Act, and Telephone Consumer Protection Act. This ruling just invalidated all those more generous interpretations. Florida state courts alone have been responsible for approximately $4.7 billion in consumer protection settlements and judgments since 2015, many based on interpretations more consumer-friendly than federal court standards. Every pending case in Florida state court is now subject to challenge under this new framework. Major class action settlements negotiated based on state court standards are being challenged. Defense attorneys are filing motions to vacate settlement agreements approved in the past 12 months. Arguing the settlements were based on legal standards the Supreme Court has now declared unconstitutional. If those motions succeed, consumers who thought they were getting settlement checks might find those settlements unwound and their cases dismissed entirely. Government agencies at the state level are suddenly facing a crisis about their enforcement authority. Many state attorneys general have brought enforcement actions in state court based on federal statutes, using their state courts' more expansive interpretations to hold corporations accountable for conduct that federal agencies might not have prioritized. Washington State's Attorney General has 34 active consumer protection cases that cite federal law, with many relying on state court precedent that interprets federal statutes more broadly than federal courts would. Defense counsel filed motions this morning arguing the state's entire enforcement strategy is now constitutionally invalid. Similar motions are being filed in Massachusetts, Oregon, and 11 other states. Environmental enforcement is particularly affected. State environmental agencies have brought hundreds of cases alleging violations of federal environmental statutes, often securing relief that federal courts might not have awarded. Clean Water Act cases are the most prominent example, with state courts in 7 states having interpreted federal water quality standards more strictly than federal courts typically do. Every one of those interpretations is now subject to challenge. What makes this frustrating for state regulators is the resource imbalance. Federal agencies like the EPA and FDA don't have the budget to pursue every violation of federal law, which is why state attorneys general stepped in to fill the enforcement gap. If this ruling prevents state courts from interpreting federal law expansively, it creates a potential vacuum where violations go unpunished simply because federal agencies lack capacity to address them all. The unanimous nature of this decision is what makes it truly bulletproof. When the Supreme Court divides 5-4, clever lawyers can find cracks in the logic and lower courts have room to distinguish cases. But when it's 9-0, the door is shut. The justices have sent an unmistakable message to every judge in America: stay in your lane. This is the third major decision in 18 months where a unanimous or near-unanimous court has slapped down state courts for exceeding their authority in interpreting federal law. The pattern represents a systematic effort to assert hierarchical control over state court interpretation of federal law in a way that hasn't been seen since the 1950s. What's really happening is the Supreme Court reasserting total dominance over the federal-state relationship. By issuing unanimous decisions, the court is effectively bulletproofing its authority. You can't claim partisan hackery when Sotomayor and Thomas are signing the same opinion. This is a strategic move to insulate the court from political attacks. In a country tearing itself apart with states at war with the federal government, the 9 people in black robes are positioning themselves as the only ones holding the line, the ultimate referees with zero room for lower courts to interpret differently. But that institutional power play creates a fundamental paradox. The court is telling state courts they must defer to federal interpretations of federal law, which sounds like federal supremacy. Yet the practical effect might be reducing overall enforcement of federal law, because state courts have been more aggressive enforcers than federal courts in many areas. If state courts were correctly interpreting federal law more generously because federal courts have become too restrictive, then this ruling makes it harder to vindicate federal rights. If state courts were overstepping and distorting federal law beyond what Congress intended, then this ruling restores proper balance. Minnesota tonight stands at a crossroads that will determine whether this ruling strengthens our federalism or fractures it beyond repair. Federal agents are standing down at county lines while sheriffs decide whether to grant them entry. Domestic violence victims are trapped in protection gaps with nowhere to turn. Thousands of employment and consumer protection cases are being dismissed based on legal standards that were valid on Monday but invalid on Tuesday. State environmental enforcement is grinding to a halt as defense attorneys weaponize this ruling to escape accountability. The Supreme Court handed us a doctrinally pure solution to messy constitutional problems, but doctrinal purity on paper often breeds brutality on the ground when human lives depend on seamless coordination between government layers. We're moving into a reality where your rights under federal law depend entirely on which county you're standing in when you need protection, where sovereignty becomes a barrier to survival rather than a shield for liberty. The question isn't whether the law was followed. The question is, who gets to decide what's reasonable in a country that can't agree on anything? One thing is certain, the rules of the game will never be the same. If you want to stay ahead of the next major constitutional shift, make sure you're subscribed. Drop a comment below.
Yeah. Yeah. Boom goes the dynamite. So we've got to really pay attention to what happens. And that video was from yesterday. So this dropped on Wednesday. So now we have to see how this affects us today and tomorrow, right? And the days going forward. And Dorlinder, thank you so much for joining and reposting the stream. And Sincerely Lawless, thank you so much for reposting the stream. She says, good morning, founder. Good morning to you too. And ISCC Ask Me says, WTF is wrong with the Supreme Court. I think we're all asking that, right? And for them to have a 9-0 decision on this, it's one of those things where smart people are smart, but they do not have common sense. And I hope people can understand me what I'm saying out there. They never think about, well, if we do this, how is this going to affect this? If we do that, how is it going to affect that? Sometimes people, when they look at constitutional law, they're just like, okay, we'll just do it this way. Well, how is it going to affect people if you do it that way? Like, are you actually having that conversation so that you can make a proper ruling? Because if you're not, this is what we've ended up with. Again, words on paper that say, hey, you can't interfere federal government with the state unless you're coordinating with the state, because before they didn't have to coordinate with federal law enforcement for law enforcement to carry out their jobs, right? That's 287G. 287G literally states you can choose state to coordinate with us or not. You don't have to. But if you choose not to, we're still coming to get these people up off the soil because they're here illegally. And my whole thing is, all right, let's just change the game. Okay, we will get up off your soil completely. But if you violate federal laws, and these laws are still on the books, okay, you got 90 days. I'm going to give you a list of people. We want these people in 90 days. If you cannot give me these people in 90 days, you're going to prison for harboring illegal aliens on American soil, because see, that's Title 8, Section 1324. So kind of thank you, Supreme Court, for making this easier on American people, because the state cannot violate federal immigration laws. They can't do that. Now they can keep all the crazy people they want to, but if the federal government says, hey, we want to work with you, we need these people off the soil, and you've got 90 days to find these people so we can remove them. If you do not remove them within that 90 days, you're going to federal prison, period. Governor, mayor, whomever is harboring these people. Because if you're telling me I got to stay out so you can protect them, that's harboring, period. 90 days. Get it done. And stop it. Stop using the American people as a ping pong. Now, with the domestic violence thing, I had no idea that was going on. I'm like, really? So now women don't even have any protections at all. But you didn't think that through, Supreme Court? Like, what is wrong with you guys? These are the things that drive me nuts about the Supreme Court. Because it's like, why aren't you thinking past your nose on certain matters? You look crazy. Okay, that's where I'm at. You look, it's a bad look. Okay, it's just not a good look. So I wanted to go from that. I know I've got 3 more clips that I want to share with you guys, and it's like, we got enough time. But do we have anybody who actually wants to come and chit chat with me? Just let me know. Young Republican and Black reposted the stream. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Appreciate you. And again, if anybody wants to join me on the stream, you can email me at unfilteredvisionnews@gmail.com or send me a direct message through X. I've got my trusted phone with me. I'm in my direct message inbox. So if anybody sends that to me, I can send you a link, and you can be on the show. So the next article that I wanted to share with you guys, there is a fraud enforcement unit. Now, this was just announced yesterday.
Hey everyone, I'm Laura Ingraham. This is the Ingraham Angle from Washington. Tonight, we have a Fox News alert. President Trump just moments ago announcing a new division at the DOJ, National Fraud Enforcement. And he's nominating Colin McDonald, who's a top official in Todd Blanche's office, he's the deputy AG, to serve as the first ever assistant attorney general in that role. The president writing on Truth Social, together we will end the fraud and restore integrity to our federal programs. Wow, more on that later.
Okay, that's great. And I hope they can start with, the Office of Civil Rights, because I see it. It's okay. I don't see it as fraud. I see it as waste. I won't call it fraud, but I will call it waste. And a lot of people are like, what are you talking about? Look, the Office of Civil Rights, have you gotten any money? I haven't gotten any money. Has anybody been repaired by it? Has anything happened? I mean, the Department of Education is getting $140 million appropriated in the appropriations bill to keep the lights on. And they might handle a case here or there. Somebody files a complaint. Okay, we got to follow up with it. It's not life-changing. What are you doing with $140 million? And that's just the Department of Education. Then you've got the Department of Health, well, HHS, right? And then you've got the Department of Transportation. Why are we giving $11 million to the Department of Transportation to keep the lights on? And what does the Department of Transportation have to do with civil rights? What? But they're getting $11 million. That's waste. Because it's not helping anyone. It's not. And I want a full audit, by the way. I need that. I need a full audit. What have you been doing with the money since the 1960s? Oh, yeah, it's been in place that long. Okay, now we're going to take a look at this one. It's called Kevin 24/7. Now, I've got to get to a certain part because there's some videos that he actually plays in the video. I don't want to do the whole video because it's long. It's like a half-hour video. I was like, oh, I can't play this that long. But there are certain sections that I do want to share with you guys of this video. So it's going to be a little choppy. Let me get to the timestamp. Get past that. Sorry, guys. Okay, let's go ahead.
Trembling. I bet she's shaking. Looks like she's seen a ghost or was shaking as she typed this reply to President Trump's post that says, I'm sending Tom Homan to Minnesota tonight. He has not been involved in that area, but knows and likes many of the people there. Tom is tough but fair and will report directly to me. Separately, a major investigation is going on with respect to the massive $20 billion plus welfare fraud that has taken place in Minnesota and is at least partially responsible for the violent organized protests going on in the streets. Additionally, the DOJ and Congress are looking at Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, who left Somalia with nothing and is now reportedly worth more than $44 million. Time will tell all. Thank you for your attention to this matter. President DJT. To which the Somali welfare fraud queen replied by saying, sorry, Trump, your support is collapsing and you're panicking. Right on cue, you're deflecting from your failures with lies and conspiracy theories about me. Years of investigations have found nothing. Get your goons out of Minnesota. Well, that's just it. Ilhan Omar admitted guilt. She implicated herself right there. She said, you didn't find anything. So that meant that there was something to find. Oh, but believe me, honey, Trump's right on cue. As always, and just put another dollar in the Donald Trump was right jar as Governor Walz surrenders and there's no pulling back. Tom Homan is on his way to Minnesota to strip you of all you got and send your ass back to East Africa.
Moments ago, Governor Tim Walz called me with the request to work together with respect to Minnesota. It was a very good call, and we actually seem to be on a similar wavelength. I told Governor Walz that I would have Tom Homan call him and that what we are looking for are any and all criminals that they have in their possession. The governor very respectfully understood that. That is a critically important development.
All right, y'all, let's hit pause for a second because
we take care of the most vulnerable among us. We welcome immigrants and refugees who are seeking a better life. And 3 elections in a row, we voted against Donald Trump. People in Minnesota are angry, beyond outrage. So am I. But if the Trump administration thought we were going to give up, roll over, and comply with this tyranny, they didn't know Minnesota. Well, they know us now. We are not afraid, and we are not tired. Resisting oppression is what America has always been about, from its very first days. There's nothing more American than standing up to tyranny in whatever way you can. I have seen Minnesotans standing up for each other, and I owe it to you to match your bravery. The Department of Homeland Security is not above the law. ICE is not above the law. The agents who are terrorizing, assaulting, and killing our neighbors are not above the law. And no Minnesotans, not Renee Good, not Alex Preddy, not any of our immigrant neighbors, no Minnesotan is beneath the law.
But just hours apart from the publicized announcement on all mainstream media news channels, today at 9 a.m., Keith Ellison let the cat out of the bag and exposed himself, confessing about him being cut out of the loop as he cosplays as an attorney and saying he was in federal court fighting for Minnesota and seeking a restraining order to stop ICE's unlawful and unconstitutional occupation of the state. But the deal was already done. Oh, you didn't know? Keith Ellison, everyone, the Muslim Attorney General of Minnesota who openly supports Antifa and has documented ties to an Islamic center that is recruiting men to join ISIS in Minnesota, is working hard to stop ICE from being able to arrest the many illegal alien pedophiles and terrorists in Minnesota. A wildly unpopular request that nobody wants, actually, by the way.
Yeah, sometimes I like blunt questions because they sort of get at the underlying feelings that people have. So this is about as blunt a question as you can get. Deport all immigrants here illegally. I will note the ABC News poll asked about undocumented immigrants. So we have slightly different questions, but these were all taken within the last month. And there's real uniformity here. That's what I really think you see. You see real uniformity. Deport all immigrants who are here illegally. 55% of the New York Times. Marquette, 64%. CBS News, 57%. ABC News with a slightly different question, 56%. So what you're seeing essentially here is a very clear indication that a majority of Americans, in fact, when they're asked this blunt question, which I believe gets at the underlying feelings, do in fact want to deport all immigrants who are here illegally. There's no arguing with these different numbers because they're all essentially the same across 4 different pollsters. Feelings towards immigration in this country, feelings towards undocumented immigrants and deporting all of them have become considerably more hawkish. And I think that gives Donald Trump much more leverage to go with the American people and sort of have these hawkish, some might say harsh, different rhetoric and also issue-based sort of going after immigrants who are here illegally. Want immigration levels decreased. This includes legal and illegal immigration. Look at this. Last year, 55%. That is the highest level since the 9/11 aftermath. You go back just to 2020.
And this, again, legal and illegal. So people want less people coming into the country.
Exactly. They want less people coming into the country. Look at that. That's a 14-point rise from 2023. You go back to 2016 when Donald Trump again was running for president the first time, it was 38%. That's a 17-point rise. So the bottom line is more folks want people who are here illegally deported, and their overall feelings towards immigration have become considerably more hawkish.
63% say they're okay with deporting immigrants who are here illegally and arrived in the last 4 years. 87% are good with deporting immigrants who are here illegally and have criminal records.
Even CNN polls prove Americans want every illegal deported, no matter what Dems scream while on Capitol Hill. And so that means you too, Ilhan. But I'll tell you what somebody told me today, and that is, this is why you don't elect Muslims to office. Pedophilia is acceptable in Islam because Muhammad married Aisha when she was 6 and raped her when she was 9. At DHS Gov said their operations in Minnesota have been focused on arresting pedophile illegals and illegals who have beaten and abused women. At Christy Nome called these the worst of the worst, but It's worth noting that Keith Ellison has been accused of domestic violence by multiple women, by the way. But in Islam, there is no such thing as domestic violence because men are permitted to beat their wives and make women their sex slaves. It's Sharia. This is why Keith Ellison is opposed to ICE operating out of Minnesota, and many want to see a ban on Muslims and them no longer holding office in the United States. It just makes sense. But hey, Keith, I know you've been out of the loop, but you do realize we have you on recorded video taking bribes from Somalians to not prosecute their daycare scams, right? Nobody is above the law, and especially not you. And so you see, the U.S. Department of Justice served grand jury subpoenas to the offices of Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison, Governor Tim Walz, Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, and others. These subpoenas, issued just last week, seek records and documents as part of an investigation into obstruction of federal immigration enforcement and billions of dollars in assorted fraudulent investigations. And so given the timeline, now it makes absolute perfect sense why Tim Walz and Jacob Frey finally decided to give up and surrender. They weighed the options and they both knew this is where it would ultimately end up. They're more than likely going to hand over voter rolls to Pam Bondi, but have also negotiated deals to roll over on Ilhan, the whole fraud scam, Amy Bach, Ellison, and more than likely expect these two to resign or quietly bow out and fade away into the darkness and allow Trump to take control of Minnesota and begin the healing process. Peggy Flanagan won't take over as governor either because she'd have either been arrested or have had fled the country after getting exposed in the Signal chat. And so there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. And this is where I leave you.
Yeah. And I will definitely make sure to post the entire video because there's like about 15 minutes prior to that. It's like a 30-minute video, but I just wanted to play those sections for you guys. Now we're going to get into our last video, and this is Glenn Beck. And some of you guys might listen to him, some of you might not, but he made some really good points on what's going on with the Signal chat that was just mentioned in this video.
Let me tell you about what we found in Red State today. This is so great. We are learning a lot more about the people who were in the anti-ICE Signal chat groups that Cam Higbee revealed. He infiltrated this a few days ago. Wasn't it earlier this week? They are now finding the organization of the group, the donors, the significance of the address in which Alex Preddy was obstructing federal officers. There is a ton of information. The groups are highly sophisticated, according to Red State. They're being set up geographically. Listen to this. Within the city of Minneapolis, they're generally being divided by city council district. Isn't that interesting? But it also covers St. Paul, Bloomington, and other suburbs. They start a new chat every day, delete the prior day's chat because Signal is encrypted and it's really difficult. Once it's deleted, then you just can't recover it. Signal also has no screenshot functions, which is why I think Higbee, recorded it on another phone that he saw. But there's all kinds of things. You're starting to see emojis next to names, and they indicate, because there's shifts, around the clock shifts, and they're indicating, for instance, there's one with a car and they're mobile patrol, one with a phone and that's dispatch. One with a plate and knife and fork. I don't know why this is it, but it means a license plate checker. Okay. There's a medic. There's an aftercare provider. It is very well financed and very well organized. Now, we had Data Republican on yesterday, and she on Sunday evening published a spreadsheet of 4,000 plus donors and their possible identities and she made it all downloadable. She took a non-redacted spreadsheet and she sent it to the FBI and other federal authorities. In one of the files revealed by Cam Higbee, it shows that people who are directing money to a website, Stand with Minnesota, it turns out it directs donors to a campaign run by tending the soil on Chuffed. I got a lot to say about tending the soil, but the campaign is hosted by Chuffed. First donation came in from a big Canadian-based community organizer who's part of the leadership and specializes in funding. So we now know also there's one example, there's more, but one, a central figure in raising money for this is from out of the country. So foreigners are playing a role in all of this. Also, some of the names of the people that are involved, there is a non-trivial number, according to Red State, of judges and elected officials who are affiliated with the current insurrection. Also, Alex Preddy, the man who was killed on Saturday, he was a member of this group. One of his neighbors confirmed that. And so was Renee Good. Then you also have the Minneapolis elected officials. Listen to this. Representative Brad Tebke, he coordinates the Scott County Ice Watch Signal Chat. Scott County is just outside of Minneapolis. And he is running, organizing, and coordinating the Ice Watch program, including recruiting people for patrol dispatch training and even food receiving, packing, and delivery for the shifts. Also, you have several others. State Representative Alex Falconer is part of this. And you also have somebody who sits on the Minnesota or the Minneapolis City Council, and a former Waltz staffer, Senate candidate, and Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan. If these names check out, there's real problem. That's why they want to set the streets on fire, to make sure they don't go to jail, at least right away.
Yeah. And there's more to that video, but I know we're getting ready to shut down the broadcast. So I will definitely make sure to post that link in the repost of the show. I mean, just the level of got judges involved, allegedly. I'll just say allegedly, right? And we've got allegedly members of city council, allegedly the lieutenant governor, allegedly. I mean, this reeks. And a hit dog is going to holler. And they have been hollering, running out of the streets. Trump is this. Why are you deflecting to Trump? This is about your state. This is about your nonsense. This is about your nonsense that's been going on. And whistleblowers have been coming forward for years, since 2009, and you've done nothing. And now you got a signal chat coordinating how you're going to go against the federal government. Oh, I got to see this play out. Because see, even in the ruling of SCOTUS, right, giving states, pretty much their sovereignty, which they already have, but they outlined it in such a way that they're like, okay, federal government, you just can't go in, you've got to coordinate, right? So you've put this bump stop pretty much in the way of the federal government coming in to enforce federal law. Okay, fine. Now people are going to be harmed behind this. So now there's going to be a whole different set of lawsuits that come out of this. A whole different set. But now you've got coordination against the federal government going on. Coordination of people literally violating federal law and state law. Because even in their state laws, not all the laws are sanctuary. You can't circumvent yourself. There are still laws in your state. Like, what are you doing? But criminals have gotten away with being criminals for so long in this country, they don't even know what right is anymore. We don't even know what good is anymore. And biblically, it does say that there's going to come a time when they're going to call good evil and evil good. So I just need everybody to keep that in mind. And also remember, in Luke, it tells us when you start to see all of these things occurring, look up, because your redemption is drawing near. We are living in biblical prophetic times. It is what it is. But we all need to make sure that we're ready. And some of you that listen to me out there, you might be atheist, and that's fine. But for those of you that are Christians that are listening to me, stay prayed up, stay focused. If you don't know what a disciple is, I suggest you start studying. And start with Matthew 28, verses 18 through 20. Okay? And look for a solid church that does practice discipleship. Because it is time to get ready. So thank you guys so much for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News. We will be back tomorrow with our Prayer with Fridays, and we'll definitely be praying prayer and Thanksgiving going into the weekend. And again, I want to thank you guys for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News. And remember, stay well, stay focused, and stay unfiltered. We'll see you in the next one.